In terms of the topics we'll be covering, some things probably you've seen before, but some exciting updates across all of them. We'll continue to touch on what we've been up to when it comes to panel quality. So, how we find participants quickly and how we do that in a way that makes sure that they're very high quality. We'll get into some stuff around unmoderated experience and surveys. So specifically how we're improving the researcher and participant experience within that through some integrations and some other changes. So Paolo will take us through that, which will be great. And then we're going to get into all the work we're doing to continue helping Hub work at scale in larger teams where there's a lot of coordination to be done and obviously some sensitivity with the data. And so Claire will take us through that. And then I'll close this out with a little bit of a look ahead for some of the areas we're really excited to focus on in 2023. And so that's the agenda.
So our panel is now 2 million participants. And if you remember last time we met, we were only just over 1 million at the time. So we've seen a lot of our growth in our panel, which of course has some benefits, but also some things we need to pay attention to. So I want to share some updates there. So of that 2 million, our main goal is that we can fill projects faster with the right participants, and wanted to share some stats on how increasing the overall panel size and improving our matching has helped there. So we have about 100,000 active participants per month, and of these, we have about 30 to 40,000 that are in some very in-demand job titles, such as digital marketers, software engineers, product managers, et cetera. So we see not only a broad base of participants, but also participants in job titles that we see a lot of demand for. And as a result, we've been able to fill projects more quickly. So we see it takes about an hour for our first qualified candidate to show up on our projects. And broadly, we're filling about 85% of projects we're finding a match for. So overall, increasing the panel has very much helped in our ability to find a good fit for all the projects. And at the same time, this last number is the one I really want to focus on. We're excited that the satisfaction rate from our sessions has actually gone up. So of course, as our panel becomes larger, we want to make sure that we still have the participants at the quality that we want. So if you remember from last time, this was 98%, and we've improved the satisfaction rate over time. So I wanted to jump into a little bit more about how we've done that. JH shared this framework last time where we think about quality at two levels. We think about what the researcher cares about most, which is that the participants have the qualification, the technology, the skills that you need to make sure that you get good insights from the conversation. And then behind the scenes, of course, we're making sure that they actually should be on the platform, that the participant is representing themselves well and can really trust the information that we're coming from them. And actually, what we find is that one reinforces the other. So as I shared last time, we now give you any opportunity to report when you're seeing a suspicious participant. So that's both before a session or after a session. We know you spend a lot of time looking at screener questions. And actually, if you talk to a participant, you get really good signal on if they're representing themselves well. And then the major update that we've done in the last 3 months is use those signals to inform 2 ongoing models that help us detect and remove participants that we don't think are representing themselves well. So you can imagine we have a lot of data on participants. We have data that we collect at sign up. This includes things like their IP address, their device, their location, a lot of signals that help us understand where we tend to see participants who misrepresent themselves. So we can find them and we can remove them or flag them for further review at that point. And then also we have ongoing activity. So based on a project that a participant applies to or their frequency of applying to projects, we can also detect if we think that they might be misrepresenting themselves. And as a result of that, we've seen in the last 3 months about a 50% reduction in reported fraud on the platform. So that's from about 1 in 200 projects to about 1 in 400 projects is actually someone will actually say they thought the participant was misrepresenting themselves. And the goal here again is just to make sure that as our panel is growing, we can use this feedback to continue to improve quality over time, so that you can be confident that the person that you're about to talk to has the skills that they need to give you good insights.
So like Carol mentioned, I'm going to talk about all the work we've been doing to better support unmoderated research and survey projects. Carol was talking about the recruit panel, and in user interviews was found that it was really built around helping researchers find the right people to get feedback from, and all the logistical challenges that come along with that to get insights and ultimately to make better decisions. We've added Hub to solve to solve the same challenge when you're trying to get feedback from your own users, and also to do all the work to update and manage your own panel. And Claire is going to be talking more about Hub and managing research at scale in a bit. But aside from finding the right people to get feedback from, you also need to choose the right method to conduct the research. And I was talking to a researcher last week, just before I left for Thanksgiving, and she and her team are pretty outnumbered in their organization by their product partners, and have been looking for ways to support and empower those teams given the big influx of research requests. In order to support them, they've started to look for ways to use unmoderated methods and surveys to handle a lot of the evaluative, sort of less ambiguous research. Now we may see this dynamic play out more as budgets get tighter in 2023, but there are a lot of reasons teams choose to conduct unmoderated research. And we did a survey with our customers. 75% of their teams run unmoderated research or use surveys, and most of those teams are doing it consistently. For us, we knew we had prioritized the moderated experience as a company. We're named user interviews. That's how we started. But given what we've heard from researchers like the one I talked to and you all, and knowing all the unmoderated research and surveys that are being launched, we wanted to make improvements to the unmoderated project experience. And when I talked to that researcher about the difference between moderated and unmoderated research, I heard two themes from her, and we heard these a lot actually when we were doing our research. The first is the participant experience should be simple but flexible. For her, this was about eliminating the chance for confusion. Since no one is there to guide the participant each step of the way, if we can get the journey right, for her, that really means less monitoring, likely higher response rates, faster responses, and sort of ultimately getting to decisions more quickly. And the other theme we heard was managing unmoderated projects and surveys is different. Those projects they tend to be larger, timelines are often shorter, and she told me she needs to check in to be sure things are going smoothly, but also wants to do that more quickly and less often. And so we've been working to improve our unmoderated and survey experience on both of these dimensions. And I'm going to talk a bit about what we've done and what we've seen. So first, I'll start with the simple but flexible participant experience. We've made a number of changes to the participant journey. On the one hand, we've simplified a lot of steps, and we've created a very lightweight process. I talked to a researcher about 4 months ago who was inviting participants from their hub, knew exactly who they wanted to talk to, and didn't need any more information. For them and researchers like them, we built a flow to go directly from invite to task. On the other hand, I've also talked to a researcher whose organization needs to do additional screening. As part of their process, they have to collect NDAs, and we support that too. In both cases, we've added context along the journey to help clarify the expectations and to set participants up for success. It's never good if a participant is surprised when they get to the tool and are asked to have their screen recorded. And if that's sort of a jarring moment, that's not a good experience for the participant. So what you're seeing here are just a few of the many changes we've made. The one on the right is about letting you select the requirements for the task itself, including recording and what type of device. And the other shows one way in which we're bringing that information forward to participants. This is a revamped invite email, and you can sort of see us trying to bring that context forward for the participant. We launched these changes for Hub a few months ago, and we just brought all of these changes to our Recruit product a few weeks ago. And so far, the results have been really encouraging. We've seen a 50% improvement to the completion rate. And this means fewer users need to be invited and approved to get the responses you need. That's obviously good for us when you're using our panel, and really good for you when you're using your Hub panel and your own users. It means fewer participants need to be invited to complete it, faster responses, and less waiting to move. So super excited what we're seeing here. The other theme I mentioned is managing unmoderated projects. And I'm going to sort of start about that with integrations, and maybe one more story to help. I was talking to a researcher about 6 months ago, and he was telling me about a 600-person survey he was running with his own users. He uses User Interviews Research Hub, and he also has a license for Qualtrics. Hub was perfect for him. He didn't need to wait to get access to the central CRM, and he could access all the data he needed to target these users. But as he described his process to run the project, it was clear there was extra effort he needed to do. to work with both Qualtrics and user interviews. For him, the trade-off was worth it, since this was like the fastest way to get access to exactly the right users. But we thought the experience could be better. And so the first part of our solution is integrations. Each integration, you can see that here, connects user interviews and the research tool directly and handles all the tracking of participant progress automatically. So for this researcher, we've been able to eliminate all the work he was doing to cross-check 600 people across 2 tools, which meant bringing the best participants together with the tools he was already comfortable using to run surveys quickly and eliminating some of the efficiency issues he was running into. So we've launched a number of integrations already, and we continue to add them. We're very excited to announce our integration with Sprig, which is coming next week. Sprig offers researchers a way to conduct surveys and to run concept tests through a really elegant interface. And so we're connecting user interviews recruiting with Sprig's research tool, and we're excited for that. So look for that, more info about that coming next week. For us, I think these integrations are really exciting because they make your experience running research projects better. So we're really excited to see in just a few months that already 30% of all unmoderated and survey responses are now being requested via one of these integrations. Ultimately, this means less work for you, and it also means connecting the best recruiting with the best research tools. So we're excited about this. If you use one of these tools and haven't tried the integration yet, and you have questions, or if you have tried using an integration and you have feedback, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk. And while integrations help eliminate manual tracking, there's also work to do to actually manage unmoderated survey projects. So when the researcher I talked to was looking for 600 responses, for him that meant like 800 plus participants to review and approve and track. It meant needing to know the overall status of the project quickly. And so we thought there were other parts of the experience that could also be improved. One of those was performance. We're investing in speeding up and improving the user experience for you. So we're already seeing a 25% improvement to load times when reviewing participants. And we think we'll see even more as we release more changes here. And finally, we also plan to make changes to the interface to help you get a better quick read on your projects and also to track participants through the process more easily. So what you see here is a new funnel view we'll be introducing so that you can like really track participants through the stages of an unmoderated or survey project easily. So for us, just taking a step back, I think really excited that now you'll be able to combine all the power of user interviews, participant recruiting, and logistics management with the best research tools to really have a great experience for any research method you choose to do, moderated, unmoderated, or surveys.
So when we talk about research at scale, we're talking about teams that are managing a high volume of research with a lot of different people, and there's a lot of coordination to be done. So we'll take a quick moment to look back. We originally built Research Hub to make it remarkably easy to do research with your own users. So when we first got started, we've been hearing about key challenges for 3 different groups. Research leaders needed a way to build and manage a customer panel for their team. Researchers wanted an easy, repeatable flow that takes care of those challenging pieces like scheduling, NDAs, and incentives so they could focus on finding those participants and getting insights quickly. And then we needed a great experience for participants as well. So that means consistently branded emails, easy sign-up flows, and assurance that those participants would not be bombarded with researcher requests. So those challenges led us to build Hub, which is our tool for panel management and recruitment automation at scale. Hub is fully customizable. So from branding to invite rules, admins can have total control over how research gets done across the organization. Hub also allows researchers to self-serve easily for their recruitment. It allows them to find the right participants and seamlessly handles all those operations pieces behind the scenes. But we're not done yet. So since we launched Hub, we've been learning about kind of a new set of challenges. Today, more and more people are wanting to get involved with research, and we know that a lot of those operational problems grow exponentially. So they get more challenging as each new person comes into the platform. So we started looking for ways to help research teams maintain a system that works well for everyone without exposing the research practice to any risks. Right, and then last time, Carol shared that we built this new concept we're calling multiple panels. Just as a quick recap here, this allows admins to segment a Hub population into multiple smaller panels, each available to different teams. So with this setup, an organization can create different panels for different researchers. so that everyone has access to only the participants that they need, which helps ensure a good experience for both researchers and participants. So with multiple teams and panels, we believe that we can support organizations of any size and complexity. And now we're also excited to introduce 3 different permissions levels to support anyone who's involved in research. So as we kind of saw in that poll today, there are a lot of different people involved in research, and they might need to be supported in different capacities. So for example, a really experienced researcher might be prepared to recruit and manage their own projects, whereas other stakeholders might be more comfortable kind of weighing in on, project decisions once things are up and running. So we've developed 3 different roles to kind of help fit those needs. Those with an admin role have high-level controls to manage the research team, customize the participant experience, manage team settings in Hub, and oversee all team projects. Researchers can't manage those team-wide settings, but they do have permission to launch projects and invite participants to their studies. And lastly, the teammate role, which is coming up soon. This role will be able to collaborate on projects launched by others, but not take independent action in the platform without oversight. So these different permissions levels mean that research leaders can feel comfortable adding more users to their organization with confidence that everyone is going to follow those best practices. And the settings are also great for researchers. So we know that some people who do research don't do it every month. And if you're someone who gets involved every now and then, you can come into user interviews to launch or support a project, knowing that the communications and participants will be all set up for you, and you don't have to worry about something going wrong that might impact the rest of the team. So we're excited to share that these team member roles recently launched out of beta, and they're now available to any teams with the Hub Enterprise or Custom subscription. So you can contact your customer success representative for more information on those. Awesome. And then one other challenge that comes up for teams managing research at scale is just the size of those participant panels. Some of our teams have thousands or even hundreds of thousands of participants in Hub, and it's really important that those populations are still easy to manage and navigate. So recently we released some performance upgrades that will allow Hub populations to load in half the time. This helps researchers get into the panel and find their participants quickly. We also released the ability for researchers to reorder those columns in Hub and save kind of a custom view of the participant table so that it's fast to find the information that's most relevant for their recruitment. And then coming up soon, researchers will also be able to create dynamic segments of participants. So you can save and reuse a set of people over and over. So for example, you might create a segment for recent signups or your product's power users and save that group so you can come back and find them again in the future.
But I'll take us through a little bit of where we're heading in 2023 and how we're going to kind of extend on some of the things you've seen today and some of the new areas we're really excited to focus on. There we go. So we're going to have 3 areas that we really rally around strategically on the product side for 2023. Starting with the 2 kind of core ones here, you see them as panel value and research experience. And so when we think about research and you zoom out kind of categorically, we think it's really about participants in a way of facilitating a session to gather insights. And so that blue bar there, panel value, is really the participant side of things. And then that kind of light red, the research experience, is really about how do a researcher and a participant interact to actually conduct a session or complete a task and gather those insights. And we think those are really complementary. So when you're inviting people from a panel or sourcing from our network, you're pulling them up into the research and facilitating things there with them. And then as you're doing the research, you're gaining a lot of useful information on those participants. You're getting screener responses, you're getting feedback from the session, things like that, that really can feed back into that panel layer and be valuable. And so we want to start thinking about the panel a little bit more holistically. What we've seen is we have a lot of customers and teams that are using both Hub and Recruit. And we want to make sure that any data you collect on participants in the platform is something that you could leverage and make use of in the future. So I'll speak on that a little bit more, but that's kind of the way we're thinking about it. And then the third area that we're going to be focused on in 2023 is what we call team operations. And so on kind of a zoomed in view, you have a researcher, finding the right participants and facilitating the session with them. But we know that research is increasingly a team sport, and in large companies, there's a lot of coordination going on. And so we want to make sure that we're also focusing on those unique needs of how you collaborate and do a research practice at scale with a lot of people involved. And we think there's a lot of unique cases that we can continue to support and add value in there. So those are the 3 areas we'll be really like aligning around as a team. And the goal is, as we continue to grow the organization, we'll hopefully have, multiple product squads in each of those areas, delivering new features and creating new workflows for you all. And so let's go into each one a little bit more, and then we'll go from there. So on the research experience side, our goal really here is to make sure that anyone can make a habit out of research. And what we mean by this is, and as that poll showed, increasingly research is being done, or non-researchers are being involved in research, right? So whether that's a product manager, a designer, a marketer, and what we see is that our product is really tailored and built for a professional researcher at the moment. And so if you know what you're doing and you know how to come in and build a screener and do all that stuff, we see a lot of great outcomes. But as somebody who maybe is less research fluent comes in and is trying to get started, it can be a little bit more intimidating. So, a designer who doesn't do research all the time is trying to get started on the platform. It can be, there can be some friction there. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're building a solution that is accessible to anyone and really flexible and easy to use, and supports a lot of different use cases. And so some of the areas that we're likely to focus in here are going to be around scheduling improvements. We know scheduling for the moderated side of things is a key component of it. And it can be something that produces a lot of anxiety. If you have to change something on scheduling, you don't want to mess it up and lose a participant or cancel the session inadvertently. So we want to make sure that that stuff is all much more intuitive and you have a lot more confidence in navigating it. We know rescheduling back and forth between a participant can be a little bit of a headache at times. And so we have a lot of ideas of how we can streamline that. We know other people like to work in a more flexible way where, hey, if my calendar is open, you can grab a slot. And so we want to look into supporting some of those types of use cases as well. So there'll be a lot of work done on scheduling, and really excited to start rolling some of those things out early in the year. We're going to continue on the testing tool integration front that Paolo spoke to. So we think there's a bunch of other great tools that people use for their research that we don't currently have integrated, and we're in talks with a lot of those teams to partner and get that set up. And so we'll add some new ones in the new year, which will be really exciting. And then the third one here is a newer one for us, but we have a very project-centric model, which aligns with how a lot of people think about research, which is great. But it's a little bit limited when you have other use cases that come up and can be a little hard to work around. So a case we hear a lot from researchers is, somebody on my customer success team said this person had great feedback, you should talk to them. And you want to just do like a quick ad hoc session. A project for that is a little bit of a pretty heavy set of overhead to get started. And so we want to have a lighter way where you can just throw that person on your calendar, still track the session in our platform, track the feedback, pay them an incentive, all the stuff that we're really good at, but support that in an easier to use way. And then similarly, we think there's probably some stuff that we could make simpler on the mixed method side of things. So, you run a survey, you get a couple really interesting open-ended responses. Maybe you want to follow up and talk to those people really quickly. It's possible on the platform today to push those people into some moderated sessions and do some follow-ups, but it's been a little bit convoluted on how you do that. And so we want to make sure that that's really easy, because we think one of the unique things we provide is that we work with, any tool and any methodology. And so supporting some of those use cases as well. So there's gonna be a lot in this bucket, but we're really excited about all the ways we can make the actual process of facilitating research easier and easier for everyone, and bring that to a wider audience of users. The next one is around panel value. So as I mentioned, we're thinking about this a little bit more holistically and more from like a user point of view. So to date, we've thought about panel as kind of a recruit and a hub thing. And that's very like a user interviews focused view of the world. And what we want to do is think about this from the end user perspective. And because we have a lot of users using both hub and recruit, we want to make sure that anyone that you've had an interaction with on the platform for prior research is available to you and someone you could consider for future research. One of the things we know is true is that the fastest way to do research is when you take out the search time. So if you already have somebody you know is a great fit and is going to be a good person to give you insights, then you can just immediately push them onto your calendar or immediately push them into an unmoderated task, and you take a whole chunk of the workflow out of it. And we think that's something that we can be really successful at enabling for everyone. And especially if you have a team of people, multiple people doing research, every time they do research, you should basically be viewing it as your panel growing. You've added some new people into the system, you've sourced some new people from our network, you've collected some new data on screening questions, and you should have this richer and richer pool of relevant participants that you could go back to for future use cases. And so some of the ways that we're going to look to do this are making it so that all past screener responses are something that you can filter on and access. And so we know that in certain projects, you might have set one of the answers as a reject answer, but that might not be a reject forever, right? So a silly example I like to use is, how often do you drink coffee? And maybe one of the answers is every day and sometimes, and the other answer is never or rarely. You might be on a project where you only need to talk to coffee lovers. And so you set a bunch of those things to reject criteria, But on a future need, you might be like, well, how could we expand our market and reach people who don't like coffee as much? You already know who those people are because you've collected those responses previously, and it should be really easy to go out and target them for any follow-up research in a different kind of setting. On the Hub side, we want to make it easier to integrate with third-party data sources. So we've built out a Hub API that teams are using to pull in data from other sources, but it does require a little bit of data engineering to get up and running with it. Which if you have those resources is great, and people are doing a lot of really cool custom things with that. But for other folks who don't have access to that engineering bandwidth or a data analyst, it can be a little bit more intimidating. And so we want to have some more native integrations with CRMs, event tracking tools, so you can pull in some of that behavioral data and have that available in Hub to build those segments off or do that targeting off and make sure that data is up to date and reliable. And then the last piece here is we want to make sure that for a given participant, you can see all of the activity that your team has had with them on the platform in one easy to use central place. And so, what are all the projects this person's been invited to? What's all the feedback they've received? What are all their past screener responses? What are all the notes we have on them? That information at the moment is a little disparate across the platform. Some of it you can see within projects, some of it you can see within Hub. We want to make sure that that's easily available to you all across Hub and Recruit participants, so you can dive in and see all that history and make informed choices about what you might want to do with that person as a result. So that's a snippet of some of the things we might do on the panel value side. There's a lot in this one. We'll obviously continue to invest in the Recruit side from a pure fulfillment perspective. That's something that will always be a priority for us, but wanted to put a little bit of a different spin on it because I think we're going to do some cool new things here as well. And then on the team operations side, something we've really seen with the rise of research ops as a role and a profession is that those folks are often, pretty outnumbered in their organization. There might be a couple of them, and there might be like 100 product managers and designers who are looking to do research. And so they need to find ways where they can feel confident about how they can oversee and support and manage that research at scale. And so we really think of this as like a systems problem. Like, what are the tools and things we can deliver for folks for them to do that well? And so the things that we're likely to do here, as some examples, are continuing to invest in that roles and permissions. So a cool example to build off of what Claire shared on that segment functionality is we're hearing a lot of folks want to, define these segments and these groups of participants, and then also manage access at that level. So, Carol can have access to the VIP segment, but some of the other teammates cannot, right? So that you can make sure that you can be really nimble in how you grant access to participants in your Hub population. And we think the roles and permissions and segments work is going to open up some of those use cases. We're also hearing a lot of requests for just like a central view of all the research that's happening in your organization. So you can have a sense of, what the breakdown of methodologies is, how many different people are doing research, just the total amount of research. I think often people are looking to report and share the impact of all the research that they're supporting and doing in the organization. And some of these data points are really powerful in how you tell that story. And this is stuff we can pull for you through customer success in the meantime, but we'll look to standardize that and pull some of that stuff in the product. And then we want to continue to invest in the defaults and templates that the admins can set up to enable for the rest of the team. And what we see here is this is something that both ensures best practices are being followed. So if you always need an NDA to be signed, making that something that is just the default in the system for everybody is something we'd love to look into. And then it also just takes some of the cognitive load and overhead off the end user. So there's less things for you to have to come in and make choices about, because somebody who's a research expert has already set up all these things and kind of created smart defaults for you. So there's less in your way to think about, and you can just get right into running your research with users. So